America in meat, milk, and grain. Volunteers poured out to the Virgin Lands with the old communist zeal.
The Virgin Lands and Khrushchev are inseparable. He was such a vivacious, enthusiastic person. He woke up the whole country. He inspired people. It was exciting and romantic. Though that sounds naive now, it was a wonderful time.
But there were not enough fertilizers, railroad cars, or grain silos. Much of the harvest was wasted.
It was hard to get meat in our town, so we had to go to Moscow. We took huge rucksacks and we went on a bus 120 kilometers to Moscow. We went to GUM, the central department store on Red Square, and spent a whole day shopping. We bought sausages, cookies, all the delicacies. We held our rucksacks open while our mothers did the shopping. Then we went back on the bus. It was a real celebration. Moscow got the bulk of the supplies. The provinces were sausageless and meatless.
Moscow, the showcase capital city, was allowed special supplies.
We had no advertising. We just looked at what the others were wearing. We tried to keep in step with fashion. We normally bought only inexpensive clothes and shoes, but we tried to get something modern. We wanted to look good, not to look old-fashioned.
People wanted more out of life and found ways to get it. Russians who worked in the defense industry got special privileges. Soviet home movies recorded changing behavior, the company picnic.
We used to go in very large groups, about 40 people. We used to buy food and cook in large pots on open fires. We slept in tents. That's how we spent our time.
Resorts were run by the party and the trade unions. Millions of families took a free vacation. Official films showed the world a new image of modern Soviet man and woman. Western lifestyles were alluring.
Fashion did penetrate our country. In the late 50s and the beginning of the 60s, when we got trousers, we changed them to make them very narrow and flute-like. You could only get them on and off by using soap on your legs. We were punished severely for wearing them.
I think that the war of the trousers was of great importance. People suddenly started allowing themselves something they could not have during all those decades of Soviet power. The young people who did this were rounded up.
There were special patrol guards with red bands on their arms. And if they saw that someone was dressed English style, not Soviet style, he was pulled out of the crowd and taken to the militia station, where they cut the trousers, then cut their hair, and then let them off home. That's how they fought against Western fashion.
But the new sounds, the new dances still found their way in. The twist with a glance over the shoulder. New portable radios could sometimes pick up forbidden programs from abroad.
Это общество выкарабкивалось.
Society was trying to crawl out from under the stones of totalitarianism.
Причем, поскольку этих пластинок нигде не было, а записать это было почти невозможно, потому что...
You couldn't get any discs here, and to record them off-air was almost impossible, because the radio was jammed.
Огромные забивалки повсюду стояли. То где, как, каким образом ее проводили, я уже даже...
I don't know how, some was smuggled in.
Эта музыка...
Copies were made on X-ray plates and sold illegally.
На рентгеновских снимках, это вам рассказывали, наверное.
It was music on X-rays. You played it on the bones of your relatives.
Значит, на костях какого-то своего родственника.
We used to go from one end of town to the other. Paid crazy money for them. Each record cost 1 ruble. That was a lot of money at the time. So I skipped lunch at school for a week, for 2 weeks. Several of us would save up the money together and go and get a record, get back, put the record on, and listen to rock and roll, to Elvis Presley. That was really something.
But most ordinary Russians received only what the state approved.
We made sure our people were getting only what we believed they needed and what we thought was beneficial and necessary for our state, our system, and the policy of our party, which played the leading role in our society.
They interfered in all spheres of our life. If a man behaved badly in the family, if he was drinking or had another woman, and his wife would tell the party or Komsomol organization, and he would be called before a party meeting.
The young were trying to make up their own rules. The old Russian family was losing control of its children. In vain, the communist youth movement tried to preserve traditional morals.
To have sex before marriage for us was very bad manners. The first night was normally after the wedding. Of course, there were some young people who did not stick to this. They behaved freely. But they were called before the Komsomol committee, where they had to explain themselves. We tried to deal with their emotional conflicts and give them direction.
Writers and artists grew bolder, challenging the censors. The young crowded to hear new voices speaking from the heart.
I become popular nationally, not as a political poet, as a poet of love, because for many years of Cold War, after 1945, some poets even didn't use in the poetry about love word I. They were using we love. If we love, I love you as I love my country, for instance. That was typical, hypocritical quotation from poetry of that time. And even poems about, not political poems, about loneliness, for instance, like my poem, yearly poem. It was accused like anti-Soviet poem, because if I'm Soviet man, how I could be lonely if I'm member of such a giant collective, like over 2 million of my friends who are working for ideals of communism, something like that. I remember these hypocritical articles.
The KGB did not deal directly with artists and writers. But if certain facts came to the attention of the KGB, and if they discovered anti-Soviet content, or something that contradicted our ideology and policies, then the KGB could get involved and try to find out who started it, why, and what their motives were.
The party was in control everywhere. In 1962, hardliners persuaded Khrushchev to visit an exhibition of modern art. They hoped he would be shocked and restore even tighter censorship.
He asked, say, some unfinished canvases. They said, no, but why they have no human faces or landscapes of our motherland, he asked. And they answered him, because they hate the faces of our Soviet workers, miners.
The hardliners succeeded. Khrushchev exploded and shouted abuse at the painters and sculptors.
Это была провокация. Выставка.